Notre Dame is going to beat Georgia. I don't care if Gunnar Stockton's out there, Carson Beck, Stetson Bennett with another year of eligibility.
Aaron Murray.
Anybody, line them up. They don't have the receivers.
You're getting a lot of SEC fans chirping at you.
It's always fun, man. Here's the part about it. Because I'm not new to this, I said it then. I was like, you know what? I'm just sit back and wait. And as soon as the game was over, that's when I started to retweet, quote tweet. I'd rather be wrong by myself than wrong in a group. My degree is in communications. My minor is in theater. And we did Football Gameplan on YouTube. In 2011, we also started podcasting before anyone was doing podcasting.
That's early.
Yeah. Fast forward now, look at everybody.
I think another crazy thing, man, is Shedeur Sanders. What is your take on his fall in the draft?
No one across the spectrum has Shedeur Sanders lower than QB2. So to see him fall tells you it is not about talent.
Do you think that he'll win the starting job in Cleveland? Emory Hunt. We're going to get into your background here in just a few moments here. But one of the things that I was really excited to talk to you about, and this kind of caught my eye a few months back, is one of your takes on that was going around on social media. Okay. And it was during the college football season. And it was this right here. I'm just going to play it for us and then we can talk about it. Okay. You let me know if you've got audio. Okay. Here we go.
I'm going to just say the quiet part out loud. I don't care if they had Carson Beck. Notre Dame is going to beat Georgia.
Okay,
Notre Dame is great on both sides of the line of scrimmage. They can run the football. They can shut down your passing game. And we saw Beck in that passing game struggle because Georgia's receivers are not the usual suspects at Georgia that we used to see. So this matchup is a bad one for Georgia. I don't care if Gunnar Stockton's out there, Carson Beck, Stetson Bennett with another year of eligibility.
Aaron Murray.
Okay.
Matt Stafford. What about Matt Stafford?
Buck Blue, anybody. Line them up. They don't have the receivers. They just don't match up well versus Notre Dame. And I like that Notre Dame comes in playing the way they are playing now because they're coming in because Ryan touched on it perfectly. Everyone now is talking about, well, you should have put another SEC team in over Indiana. Notre Dame is sick of hearing all about that. They're going to go down there on a mission and show them why they are who they are.
All right, man. So this was a pretty great take. It turned out to age pretty well, but I remember you caught a lot of flack for that, and that went pretty viral on social media. What was that like? What gave you the confidence to make that take? And then what is the experience like when you're getting a lot of SEC fans chirping at you for having this bold take? What was that like?
It's always fun, man. Here's the part about it. When you're watching the games and maybe I'm the one that's crazy in terms of how I go about it because I'm watching things and trying to look at it for what it is. I don't have no allegiance. No, I'm not a fan of anything, right? So I'm just watching the games, giving my take, my analysis on what I think could potentially happen. So watching how Georgia has played all throughout the season and then watching how Notre Dame had played recently, you're like, this is just a bad matchup. And I thought I was going to be amongst other people to feel the same way. But when I put the take out there and everybody just jumped over it, I'm like, whoa. And because I'm not new to this, and I've done stuff like this before and it has aged perfectly, I said it then. I was like, you know what? I'm just sit back and wait. Either I'm going to be right or I'm going to be wrong. But when I'm right, guess what's going to happen? And so I just sat back and had to sit on this for a whole week until the games got played. And boy, when it took everything in my being not to rehash it in the second quarter. Because that's when I knew it was about to be over for Georgia. I was like, no, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait until the game is over with. And as soon as the game was over, as soon as the clock hit 0, that's when I started to retweet, quote tweet, and started to bring it back up. Because that's what is – because, again, I've seen this happen for me in draft season. I remember people gave me flack for having Jahmyr Gibbs as RB1 and Bijan Robinson as RB2, as if I said Bijan Robinson was RB35, right? And everybody say I need to rechange my process. I'm just doing this for clicks. I don't know what I'm talking about. By week 5 of the rookie season, everybody's, Jahmyr Gibbs. And so I'm just sitting back like, once again, if you trust the work you put in, and at the end of the day, let the chips fall to me. I've always said this. I'd rather be wrong by myself than wrong in a group because it shows I'm thinking.
I like that. Would you say that is one of the more satisfying parts of the job is when you have a take that's maybe not the most popular one and you turn out to be right?
Oh, absolutely. If people tell me or they're asking me a lot, who's your favorite team? Who's your favorite team? I was like, man, once I got into media, there's no more allegiances. Yeah, I grew up in New Orleans. I grew up a Saints fan, but once I started to build Football Game Plan and want to do this seriously, you got to let your fandom go, and you covering the whole league. You're covering all different types of football. And I tell them the most important thing I care about now is just being right. That's what I love the most. You know what I'm saying? That's the mark of the industry, because you want to be right a lot. You want to be right more often than you're wrong. And you hopefully, at the end of the day, that's what kind of keeps you going and keeps the longevity going, is the fact that, hey, this dude actually knows what he's talking about more often than not.
Absolutely, man. The allegiance is to being right. It's not to any teams or anything like that. So you just mentioned it right there, man. The Football Game Plan. Can we get into your background a little bit and what's brought you to this point? Because you do a lot of stuff. I mean, obviously, you're a sports journalist. You're on TV. You do a bunch of media stuff. You're a writer. You're also a commentator. So can you walk me through a little bit of your football background and how you ended up at this point?
Well, it's funny because I played football in college at the University of Louisiana. Injury cut short my career, but it kept me around the game, and that's where I became a better student of the game and had more appreciation of the game when I wasn't able to play. I think as a player, you always take it for granted that tomorrow is promised, but it's not. And so deeper appreciation for the game, and really start to learn the game from a 10,000-foot level, which gave me that drive to want to coach. And so right after college, I went back to my old high school, McMain High School in New Orleans, and coached there for a year. And then, I started to listen to other people. Oh, you graduated from college with a degree in communications, and why are you doing this? Why don't you get a real job? And I'm like, you hear those voices, you're like, all right, I'm a jump into corporate America. So I did, as a recruiter for this allied health school.
Okay.
Katrina hit, and that moved me. I had two options. I was like, they said you could either go to, Houston, Texas, Southwest Missouri, or New York City. I'm like, I'm a city dude. I'm going up that way, right? So went up here, moved to the other side of the company. It was like a automotive school that I was recruiting for, but I had like 3 states, like Jersey, Delaware, and the 5 boroughs of New York and parts of upstate New York, right? So I'm recruiting this area. I'm traveling around, going to high schools, and speaking in front of school students and classrooms and auditoriums, and kids that were interested, I'm going recruit them at their home. So in my mind, I'm looking at it like it was football recruiting, right?
Right.
And so you're getting guys signed up. I knew nothing about cars,
Right.
but you're getting guys to buy into what you're selling. They're signing up for this automotive school because you recognize their passion for cars, and you're getting them to go. The closest school is in Pittsburgh, so you're getting them to go 6 hours away because they believe in you. And so I found joy in that. And I was number 1 in the company, so I was tops. But at the end of the day, football was still eating at me, and I was like, man, I kind of want to. So I applied for some head coaching jobs around the New Jersey area, high school wise. Some got to the final interview, didn't get it, but still love the process nonetheless. And then in 2007, I was like, man, I need to get these football takes out, because I keep feeling I need to start doing football. So I started Football Gameplan .com in 2007. And where we jumped off the porch really quickly was we were the first, probably the only spot, and this is probably where the initial question comes from. We was the first ones to predict App State beat Michigan, and we laid it all out, and we was like, this is how Michigan is going to lose this ball game. And lo and behold, it played out exactly how we said it. And obviously people thought we were crazy just trying to get clicks. And now, since we proved right on that big monumental upset, more people came to the site and saw that we was covering all football. And so that got our interest out there pretty quickly. But then in like 2009, I started to feel like people were more inclined to, not read articles anymore. So I was like, man, there has to be a way that we can kind of get ahead of the curve. Right. YouTube was still fairly new. My degree is in communications. My minor is in theater. I knew what equipment looked like, lights, cameras, mics. Boom. We set up in my apartment, and we did Football Game Plan on YouTube. And, people start to, because here's the thing, here's the niche that we had, or the hook that we had was, if you were a Cincinnati Bengals fan and you're watching this 4-hour pregame show on cable television or whatnot, and you're waiting to see them talk about the Bengals game. And they get to the last 30 seconds of the show, and they say, "Oh, but Bengals play the Browns. I'm taking the Browns because the Bengals don't play well on the road." And you're like, "Man, that's all the analysis.
That's it.
So that's it." So I watched this 4-hour show, and they just gave me. So we was like, "Well, we're gonna do game previews, 5-minute previews for every game in the NFL, CFL." And big college football games, even all the way down to G5, FCS. We was giving everybody 5 minutes, women's tackle football. So then we was, going around to different, at the time before Twitter, it was message boards and posting, here's your Bengals preview. And so people was like, man, this dude talking 5 minutes about the Bengals. It's straight football, X's and O talk. I'm watching this. But then everybody, that's how we got our YouTube viewership up, which then spawned opportunities for me to do broadcasting and things of that nature. In 2011, we also started podcasting before anyone was doing podcasting. We had a live call-in show. 11 to 1 on Saturdays. It was on Blog Talk Radio. So at this time, I'm telling people I got a TV show and I got a radio show, and they're like, "Oh, where is it?" I was like, "Well, the TV show is on. It's actually on YouTube." "Oh, it's on YouTube." And then like, "Oh, you got a radio show? What station?" Like, it's a podcast. Oh, it's a podcast.
Right.
Fast forward now, look at everybody, right? And so it was ahead of the curve, building that way. And I would say in 2015, I remember because grinding through the Football Gameplan YouTube channel and podcast, you think, is this it? Is this the top? I got a call from a guy at the DC Divas Women's Football Alliance. He was like, "Hey, Emory, I know you do game previews. Would you mind doing one for us? We have a playoff game coming up. It's going to be on TV, and I know you do these game previews of the." I was like, "All right, cool. I don't mind." And so, but it's always about asking for the business. I was like, "Hey, you said it's going to be on TV.
Yep.
Do they have the analyst yet?" He was like, "Let me call." So he called the producer, called me right back in like 10 minutes. Like, nah, they didn't. I told him, "You got to be the guy because women's football. You need to get it." So the guy calls me. I get to do the game with my guy, Jeremy Huber, who works for Sirius NFL Radio. And it was the first time I was on TV calling the game. So it was a women's tackle football game, DC versus Boston. And that was the first time I actually got on-air experience in terms of analyzing the game. We did such a great job in that game. It was on local TV in DC. The producer had just got a deal with USA Football. So we did these All-American games a month later. And then after that, he got another contract with Georgetown football, the Hoyas. He was like, "Hey, you be interested in doing college games?" Like, absolutely. So was doing that for, doing these games up until like 2018.
I gotta stop here. I played football at Georgetown. You might have.
I probably called one of your games. Like,
one of my games, man.
You listen. I was there with me, Jeremy, Mike Niebrick. We were there from 2016 to I stopped calling Georgetown games, I think, like 2021.
Oh, dang, man. My last year was 2015, actually, so I missed you by 1 year. But that's crazy. Man.
You never know, though, man. Like, I maybe I'm tripping. I got to look back. Maybe I did a game in 2015. I had to have done a game in 2015.
That's crazy.
So it's wild that's the connection, right? Because you know what I'm saying, like, that's how I got the start. And so and I won't say 2018, a dude. I'm now I had my own Football Game Plan TV show on cable network where I was packaging our Football Game Plan content. We had it on cable TV in Canada and also around the country. I never get an email from a guy at CBS was like, "Hey man, we lost a guest. Would you mind jumping on this Cannell and Bell show at it's a podcast?" Well, I like, sure. It was like at 7:30 in the morning. So I was like, I'm up already anyway. So I jump on it. It was Danny Cannell, Raja Bell, and they had a podcast. So we did it. And then I went to the gym. And then when I came back, I had like 15 missed calls. And it was the producer. He was like, "Yo," he said, "they loved you. They want you to know if you want to do it every Friday or every Thursday morning." I was like, "Yeah, sure." So we did that. And then they started adding a day. So I was on CBS HQ Thursday and Friday in the morning. And then 2020 was like, "Yo, let's make you a part of the CBS family." And then boom. And everything that's the story in a nutshell.
It's so cool to see just basically how you scrapped and like created the opportunities out of nothing from the beginning, and then just put yourself out there more and more. And then getting some of these opportunities come your way, and then kill it when they do come your way, and then just, man, look at you now, man. It's awesome to see. It's a pretty damn inspiring story, man.
You got to be ready for the opportunities, man. It's wild because I remember, it's funny because I remember we were doing, I was trying to get into every event, and the only events I were able to get into were the women's tackle football games and covering that. And then, some small school games like Ivy League games to go and cover scout, whatnot. I was never getting into the NFL events or major college football games. And I remember the one thing I wanted to get into was the draft. And so I was not getting to the draft when it was at Radio City. So what I did was I just set up outside the first day of the draft when everybody was lining up outside and set up my camera, my banner, and was interviewing people on the street.
Yeah.
And so it gave the look that I was going in there, but I really was on the outside with no credential. And so I remember, and it shows you how everything ties together. So I remember applying for NFL training camp credentials, getting denied by the Giants and Jets. And I remember I reached out to the Eagles, and this is to cover a game.
Okay.
And so the guy gets back to me, and he was like, "Yeah, come on down." He said, and I was like, "Oh, what?" So it was a Thursday night game, and so I went down there like to cover the game. And when I got there, we had wrote these 2 football books. Where we wrote 3,
right?
But Football Love Story, What Did Football Teach Me, and Stiff Arm and Football Myths. So I bought all 3 books and a coffee mug for the guy. Like, "Hey man, I appreciate you giving me this opportunity. You're the first one." He said, "Man, when you emailed me, I knew who you were." He said, "Because I wrestled at Tufts University, and I remember watching your videos on YouTube. You broke down a Tufts game," and I was like, "So you think nobody's watching your stuff?"
Yeah.
And that got me in the door, and then got me in another door, and then so it's crazy to your point, man.
Crazy, man. Yeah, just like you never know when you're putting stuff out there, and that's like what I tell people, because like I've done a similar stuff, not necessarily all in the sports world, but just like building a YouTube channel and putting stuff out there. And even when you start and it's almost like no one's watching, and you just never know what something is going to lead to. That's a pretty damn inspiring story, man. I didn't know all that. Also didn't know that you guys predicted that App State, Michigan, because man, I remember when that happened. That was the biggest upset of all time. That's pretty iconic that you guys had that. One thing I wanted to ask you about, I think is because you just had it recently on your Twitter, is you talked about being a fan of football because you cover all levels of football, just as you talked about kind of in your background story that you've touched on all different levels of football. And you say some people, they say they're football fans, but they're really just NFL fans, or maybe they're just, Power 4 college football fans, or maybe even Power 2 college football fans. What are some of the nuances that you maybe appreciate of the different levels of football? I mean, because you've been exposed to kind of all of it. And like you said, you've covered all different sorts of levels of football. So what are some of the nuances that you appreciate?
Well, let's start at the bottom.
Okay.
Right at the high school level, it's the adolescence of it all. It's like, this is a group of guys that are playing amongst their friends for their high school. In some small towns in America, they're playing for their town, right? I remember the cool part of high school football was just being a part of your homeboys. It's like, man, let's go. We could beat this school down the street that always walks by our school talking trash. We're going to go and beat them. And it's just like that competition, and just knowing the high school football players' mindset and what they're playing for, and they're still developing, and you get to see the growth. And we know it's more so not about the wins and losses, is about that shared experience for them. So you appreciate that they are out there. Some of these guys have never put on football equipment ever again after high school. And so that's the high school game. And then you like to see the competitiveness of it, because football as a whole is a beautiful sport.
It
it's
is
a dope sport. It's like real life Dungeons and Dragons, a real life simulation, right? Where, okay, we're going to call this play. And now as a coach, you sit back and watch it. 11 guys on each side play it out, right? And you don't know what the outcome is. It's such a dope game.
That's crazy. I love that analogy right there. It's like,
it makes sense, right?
It does. I never heard that, but that makes so much sense.
And then at the college level, it's the advancedness of the game. Like, it's more, okay, these are the best of the best. Everybody out here were the best at their high school. So that raises the stakes of the talent level. So now we're seeing good on good.
Yeah.
And you get to see the levels of it. And, and then it has a little bit of that college, that high schoolness still attached to it, where, man, some guy may be a legend at Georgetown. You know, we know about the significance of number 35, right? And so that stuff you don't get anywhere else. You get it at the college football level, or the fact that at Clemson they run down the hill and touch Howard's Rock. You know what I'm saying? Like just the atmosphere that it kind of reminds you of high school ball, but it's not really. It's elevated. That's different than the pro game, and was more corporate in the pro game. But the college level is everybody has their uniqueness of their brand, whether it's the band, the fight song, the tradition. All of that is wrapped into college football, and it started the whole thing that we know now is football, because college football started football.
Right.
It didn't start at the high school level, it started at college.
Right.
So you're really watching, and even if you whittle down to Division III football, it's the pureness of it. It's the closest thing you get to why you play the game, right? Can I beat the guy in front of me? I'm truly doing it for the love of the game. And we truly are passionate about this. We're not getting paid to do it. We're not getting asked to do it. We want to do this, which is how we all started playing the game. Then at the pro level, you're really seeing the true elite best of best. Is more of a mental game, where they know everything about you, your strengths, weaknesses, and you're trying to attack that and trying to find that little edge. And just the strategy of pro football is the attraction. It's like, man, like I know everybody's good.
Yep.
There's no bad teams in the NFL. But man, it's those little margins of strategy that is the difference. So that's when everything comes into play, from coaching to technique to execution. And you're just watching this, and it's like we're really watching us, tug of war. But these little bitty margins and these little bitty differences is what it's the difference between the Eagles beating a team, like the Chiefs or whatnot. It's like, wow, this is a slight difference, even though everyone on the team is really good players.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, I love that breakdown right there. It's cool that you mentioned the Georgetown 35 tradition, because I actually had the honor of wearing that my senior year, and it's just like one of the still to this day like one of the greatest honors of my life. And it's those type of traditions in college football that I think are so cool and so special. Well, that brings me also then to another level of football that you and I have a little bit of shared experience with, and that's the European League of Football, the ELF. And you and I have both done some broadcasting and commentating for some of those games. What is your take on the European League of Football, and it's maybe something you appreciate about that, because it is different. There are some differences to what we see in the States. What are your thoughts on that?
Man, I love the ELF.
Yeah.
And the reason why I love the ELF, one is football, obviously, passionate about that. But the fact is a true homegrown league.
Yes.
Like you're only getting 4 Americans on the team, 2 on the field at the same time or something like that. So if we're watching the Madrid Bravos, you're literally watching a lot of homegrown talent. You're watching the Vikings, you're watching legit homegrown talent, which one tells you how the game has grown globally.
Right.
But also, if I always want to expand and see the future, right? Like, man, I said this before I found out about the ELF.
Yep.
Before it started, it's in its 5th year. But when the NFL was going overseas to play these games overseas, it's like, man, they got out of NFL Europe too early. Yep. Had they stayed in NFL Europe, they'd have what they're looking for. They would probably have an entire NFL European division or league already. But they wasn't making money initially, but then they backed out in 2007, I believe. And then now they started to play. It's like, oh man, if they would just kept that. So watching the ELF kind of reminds me of, and even though some of the names are of the teams, reminds me of NFL Europe. But you're literally watching. And I remember back in the day when it was NFL Europe and the World League of American Football, they had maybe 2 or 3 homegrown players on each team. And now you're watching the league, which is 90% homegrown players. So it shows you the growth and development of football, and it's really competitive, good football games. And it gives guys an opportunity to either continue to play, get the football out of their system. If you're a guy in the States, you want to go play and, get all the football out, then you can go get your job. Or at least you play pro football, but you're watching the growth and development of the game globally. And you're seeing it competitive. You're seeing it high scoring. You're seeing some great football action to where now when you're watching it, you're like, man, I wonder if this dude could play in the NFL, or how would this team do against a UFL? So people start to have those conversations, but that shows you the growth that the ELF has made in only year 5.
Absolutely, man. And we've seen a couple guys. I mean, Turpin, who played for the Roseau Panthers, he ended up bouncing back to the States and signing with the Dallas Cowboys, and he just got a nice, solid contract. So there are guys that have that level of talent in that league. And one of the things that you touched on that I think is so cool is the homegrown nature of it, because, it's like it's 80-90% German guys on the Munich Ravens, and they play the Vienna Vikings. That's 80-90% Austrian guys. You got that Germany-Austria rivalry that sort of adds another little dimension to it, which is a very cool thing. And then for guys who just American guys, especially, I'm a guy that benefited from being able to go over and play in Europe, continue to prolong my football career, but also get that experience, that cultural experience. I think it's very, very cool. So
I will say this too, and that's the other part of why I do what I do in terms of covering the different leagues. Because I had teammates that ended up starring in the CFL, ended up starring in the Arena League. Good teammate of mine, friend of mine, Willie Robinson, played over at Lubeck, the Cougars.
Oh yeah,
and so he played in Germany, he played in France. So I was familiar with football being played over there. And to see him coach over there as well, and just to see other aspects of the GFL and all that stuff like that before the ELF became what it is, I was like, yo, there's football being played over there. So it's always been fascinating to see how it continues to grow to where we are now.
Absolutely, man. And the ELF, of course, is getting more and more professional. But when you talk about some of those homegrown leagues, like the GFL, especially a few years ago, it does have some semblance when you're talking about sort of the purity of Division III football, because a lot of those guys, they're not playing for any money. A lot of those guys they're going to work, the homegrown German guys, and then they're coming to football practice after work, a whole 10-hour day at work. And I remember when I first learned about that of some of my German teammates, it kind of reignited this love of football for him. It's like, man, these guys are doing it because they love it so much. And I think that that's like a really special thing about football in Europe. So hopefully that continues to grow, man. And are you broadcasting any more ELF games coming up this weekend?
Yeah, matter of fact, I got 2. I got a game Saturday and a game Sunday. I got the Cologne Centurions versus Raiders T-Roll on Saturday, and then early Sunday morning I have the Nordic Storm versus the Berlin Thunder. So yeah, I got back-to-back games.
You got a big weekend, man.
I'm excited too. Like, this is my first live look at the Nordic Storm. I saw them play. It sucks that Glenn Tunga is hurt.
I know.
He's a fantastic tailback, but they got a stacked team, man, to say it's an expansion team, but I love it. I can't wait.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's an exciting one. That's an exciting team. Jadrian Clark, former MVP. It sucks about Glenn, but Nordic looked pretty good this week, or this past week, even without him. So that's a strong team. And them being a first-year expansion team as well, and already putting up this kind of tape is pretty impressive. Okay, so I could talk all day about European football, ELF football, and I'm sure you could too. I do want to come back to North America a little bit, some of the other leagues and things that are going on in college football and the NFL. And the big story this year has been the transfer portal and the NIL era of college football. What is your kind of general takes on that? Maybe a little bit of the pros and a little bit of the cons, because I think there's some of both with sort of the widespread transferring being available. What's your thoughts?
Man, that's a great question, because there's a lot to unpack there.
I know.
Because transferring, I always looked at it from, and this is where whatever era you played in, you kind of have to get out of your era and see it for what it is now.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So I used to have that issue when I was evaluating prospects and looking at running backs. Like, I'm looking at it from when I played and how the game was with I formation, reading tackle to tackle. Like, these guys are playing a different game. It's more spread out. It's more zone reading. So it's like you can't look at everybody and try to have that same 1990s mindset, right? So, but in terms of transferring, I was like, dang, I would have hated to leave my teammates, because you build a bond with the dudes you're there with, and to leave and go to another school is like, man, I got to learn new teammates, I got to learn new buildings, I got to learn new classes, and and the other part is the transfer is like the classes, like what trend, like, used to hear that a lot back in the day, like, man, I'm gonna lose credits if I go this, so I might as well just. But I guess now everything is online. It does, who knows, right? But that's one question. What about the education part? And then, I get it for quarterbacks,
right?
Because only one can play,
right?
Everybody else, you kind of like, man, compete and try to get, maybe get some playing time. But if I would say to fix transferring, you get the one free blanket transfer, boom, regardless, right? I get now that there's you get the two because you get if the coach leaves or whatnot.
Right.
But if you choose to leave and your coach is still there, you only get one free transfer. Because I feel like we've become college basketball where guys just bouncing around to you, they just phase themselves out, right?
Right.
And so the portal now is also a way of light quitting. Some guys just want to quit without saying I quit. So they'll just say, man, I'm in the portal. Nobody really came out, got me out the portal. Like, I think that's a way for guys to like stop playing ball.
Yeah.
And in terms of NIL, I remember that this is another one where it's just generational in your era, right?
Right.
I remember the biggest thing we cared about when we played was getting free food.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Or getting hookups at the store for clothes or whatnot.
Yeah.
And maybe we was thinking too small. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, but these kids now, I wish we just changed it because NIL was for name, image, and likeness. Like, you were supposed to, hey, come check out Joe's water shop at so-and-so. That's what it was supposed to be for, but it turned into just contracts. So I wish we just call it what it is. And if we're going to call it contracts, let's put some stipulations into where you're locked in for 2 to 3 years at a program. And that would eliminate a lot of guys bouncing around. And I also don't like the whole roster cap that they're putting out because that eliminates a lot of opportunities for guys anyway. So I really wish we can get the roster to be what it was, like 125 to 130. Contracts for NIL, call it, whatever you want to call it. And transfers, get one free transfer and stop bouncing around. And I don't want to say running from competition. It makes sense for quarterbacks because you only play one, but everybody else, man, just stay, compete, get better, and let the chips fall where they may.
I think you just solved it. I think that's what we got to do right there. That's how we fix it. That's how we kind of reined it in a little bit. That's an interesting thing because I actually had a sports psychologist on the show, and we were talking about the transfer portal and talking about okay, just as you said, quarterbacks, it's maybe a little bit different thing, but for other positions, it's almost teaching guys to shy away from competition. I know not everyone who's transferring is doing this, but it's like, oh, I didn't win the starting spot this year as a sophomore. Well, I'm just going to bounce and go somewhere else instead of sticking with a program and trying to, work your way up and sort of fighting through that and competing and earning a starting spot. So that's also perhaps a little bit of a negative drawback on it. I think another crazy thing, man, is when we see some of these guys, okay, let's take like Shedeur Sanders, for example, who now I believe was probably making, or his NIL valuation was higher in college than his rookie contracts in the NFL. And I guess this kind of just brings me to the Shedeur Sanders point, is what is your take on his fall in the draft? Because I think that was pretty wild for a lot of people.
Yeah, it never was about Shedeur Sanders, the player.
Yeah.
Because I say this, if it was, this is also, first of all, let me, I have to clarify the difference in job roles.
Okay.
So I am a football analyst.
Yeah.
And so that covers a lot of things, right? And during draft season, I am a draft analyst, which means I am evaluating talent and projecting forward, just from the media side, right? Obviously, I'm not a scout because but I do scout in person because I'm at a lot of games. I'm at all of the college all-star games. So I can kind of, say I'm a media scout, draft analyst, right? So you have that. You could have guys that are mock drafters that all they do is talk about mock drafts. All they do is put out mock drafts. They don't really evaluate talent. They're just trying to guess where they think guys are going to go. Right. That's different than someone that actually scouts and analyzes talent. And you have draft reporters. They just reporting on the news and notes of the draft. So-and-so is thinking about moving up. So-and-so is looking to trade, blah, blah, blah. The problem is guys kind of blend and blur the lines.
Right.
And so some people think mock drafting is breaking down prospects when it's not. So I said all that to say no one across the spectrum has Shedeur Sanders lower than QB2 or outside of their top 40.
Right.
So to see him fall tells you it is not about talent. And anyone that said it was about talent is gaslighting or lying to you because it wasn't, because no one had that happening. So I thought it was more of a shot toward Coach Prime and the entire system that we now know as what we just talked about, the NIL and transfers. Because think about this, for the last 2 years, right?
Okay.
We just saw Bronny James, get directed and steered toward the Lakers. Now,
Right.
whether you believe Bronny James is an NFL, NBA prospect or not, that's neither here nor there.
Sure.
But it's mostly about LeBron James and everybody in the NBA having a chance to draft Bronny James, but it was understood that he's going to go to the Lakers in the second round, and so NFL's watching that. Then you just had this Nico Iamaleava situation where a starting quarterback for a Power 4 program holds out of spring practice.
Right.
And it's like, and so if you're Tennessee, you're like, damn, he's a starter. He's one of the top starters in the country, and he wants more money. So he holds out and then goes somewhere else, goes to UCLA. So what if college football is not going to do anything? NFL is like, we'll step in, we'll make a statement. We'll, come heavy-handed to where, because Dion was also talking about how he can kind of pick and choose where he wants to go. And the league was like, wait a minute, we don't want to become the NBA where the players run the league.
Mm-hmm.
So they was like, and who better to make an example out of than the most polarizing player, Shedeur Sanders, and also his dad, and kind of steer the up and coming college players. Because in this past draft alone, I want to say it was like 15 former NFL players' sons was in this draft class.
Yeah.
So if you zoom out a little bit and imagine like, okay, what if we have more? We're going to have more coming down the pike.
Right.
And they may play premier positions. They may be really high level prospects. We want them to go where they are picked. We don't want them to pick where they want to go.
Right.
And because then you have anarchy. And so the NFL is kind of like, all right, it's a gentleman's understanding that we'll facilitate this drop.
Yeah.
And not only does that humble the Sanders, but it also humbles the future down the line up and coming superstar. I think that was a whole thing.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I think when you take a look at the entire ecosystem of football with college football and all the transfer portal and everything, and the players getting power, and what, okay, are we going to become the NBA, which is so player driven, whereas the NFL, which is so owner driven? I like that take, man. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I'm just super curious. What do you think? Do you think that he'll win the starting job in Cleveland?
I think so. Because again, had he been taking QB2, the expectation would have been like, oh, he's going to be the starter.
Right.
So, and when you look at the Browns draft, and if you just move Shedeur to pick 33, you're like, wow, they knocked it out the park. They got great players, right? Because they really did. And we're so focused on he got picked in the 5th round. And I know some detractors will rebut and be like, what about Caleb Williams? He tried to play Caleb Williams wasn't the type of impact that Deion Sanders and Shedeur Sanders had.
Right.
So they wasn't going to allow Caleb Williams. He didn't have enough cachet to shake the table like an Eli Manning and Archie Manning did.
Sure.
And so that's why that situation is not this situation. So if it's just a straight football competition, coaches want to win, the best player will stand out in practice. And what Shedeur Sanders has in his favor is that he's talented. He's super accurate. He's consistent. He's tough, but he has the players backing. Like you saw players on the team already, not the rookies with him, but the players on the David Njoku's, those guys are already rocking with Shedeur. Then the rookies, you saw him they look at him as a celebrity. So when you have that type of momentum and you're nice on the field, there's no stop. Whether it's week 1 or week 3, Shedeur Sanders is going to be the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think I don't know if it's going to be week 1, but I think it will be at some point in his rookie season that he will be the starting quarterback. The Caleb Williams situation is interesting, and all of that story kind of came out in the last few weeks of how maybe they were interested, him and his father were interested in maybe trying to not go to the Chicago Bears. Rookie season, obviously, he had a lot of really impressive flashes, but there were some inconsistencies there, especially when it came to the coaching staff. Now he's got Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson's, putting some pieces in place. They've shored up the offensive line. What are your thoughts on the Chicago Bears and Caleb Williams in his second year as a starting quarterback? And is the pressure on him this year to make it work now that there's more pieces in place?
I think he'll be even better. He had a decent rookie year.
Yeah.
Statistically, he had a good rookie year, but we saw how it looked on the field. It didn't look like it was a good rookie year, right? But he played like he had success, and so they've added more talent. They got better where they were vulnerable on the interior offensive line. Guard center guard, they're outstanding there now. They got depth in the backfield. They added another talent at wide receiver. They added another talent at tight end. Now you had a coach that knows how to get the tight ends involved, gets the run game going. He's going to take some of the pressure off Caleb Williams. We're going to see a lot of Caleb Williams coming off play action. The offense will look a lot like Detroit.
Right.
The difference between Caleb Williams and Jared Goff, athleticism, so he could do a little bit more within the offense. So plays that we probably haven't seen from Ben Johnson because he didn't have the personnel with Goff. And the deep ball. Caleb Williams has a better arm, better deep ball than a Jared Goff. That in and of itself is going to open things up. So I expect this team to make the playoffs. I thought they were going to make the playoffs last year because I thought they were talented enough, especially when everybody was like, oh, it's funny because when you look at Justin Fields and you watch the Bears with Justin Fields, you never came away saying Justin Fields is the reason why they lost. But everybody was like hell bent on saying Justin Fields is the reason why you need Caleb Williams. He plug and play. Well, they were worse with Caleb Williams last year than they were the year before with Justin Fields, right? But now with better talent, a coach that knows how to get the most out of his quarterback, and with the ability to do a little bit more, and a team got better, the Bears are going to be a problem, like legitimately on defense, in addition to what they are going to do damage-wise offensively. So I see now the numbers that Caleb Williams put up last year.
Right.
Even if he puts up the same numbers this year, it'll look better, and it'll look like how it was supposed to look last year. So I think, therefore, Caleb Williams is going to look like Caleb Williams that we saw at USC.
Yeah.
The Bears are going to win a lot of games, and they're going to go to the postseason.
I like that, man. I mean, I think I'm with you on a lot of that. I'm really excited about Caleb as a player, and then to have him have more of these pieces in place around him, and maybe a offensive-minded head coach that can pull out some wizardry for him and really lean into his talents. I'm really excited about that. Touched on Justin Fields. Last year, I thought it was interesting. I mean, he started off great with the Steelers and then gets pulled, and Russell Wilson gets put in as the starter. Do you think that Tomlin should have left Justin Fields in as the starter last year?
I think so. And you saw the deficiencies of that move manifest itself on the back end of the season. There was one play in particular that kind of highlighted that. The Steelers were playing the Ravens, and Russell Wilson takes off, and it looks like there is open grass. And the next color grass was purple, which would have been a touchdown, the end zone. So he's like, oh, dang, they're going to score. They're going to make this game tight or take the lead. And then Ardarius Washington comes from the back corner of the end zone, beats Russell Wilson to the goal line, hits him hard as heck, and knocks the ball out. And now the Ravens end up turning the ball over, and the Steelers are like, dang, we missed that opportunity. Fields would have scored. Like, Fields wouldn't have got caught.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? He would have beat Ardarius Washington. So even in some of those situations where Russell Wilson took off and ran, what was a 10-yard gain would have been a 30-yard gain and perhaps a touchdown with Justin Fields. And you saw Fields starting to grow within the passing game. And I've always said this, and now you start to see rumors and the rumblings come out of Steelers camp. The focus wasn't about shouldn't have been on Fields in the passing game. It's Arthur Smith's play calling. If you're limiting the quarterback from throwing or having the whole field, or hey, this is the passing, we're gonna run, and the one throw we have, now all the pressure's on completing this pass. Well, if you allow me to get into a groove throwing the football throughout the course of the game, I'm in the groove like they did versus the Chargers. And so I think Fields it's funny how people talk about Fields, because Fields has always been a talented player.
Right.
And people talk about him as if he's always been a runner. We didn't know he could run like this until he got to the NFL, because he didn't run at Ohio State. He was throwing the football deep down the field. So they put a square peg in a round hole in the NFL and just made him into this runner. But that's not really his game. He can do it and do it at a high level, but he's really just a guy that's going to drop back and work touchdown to check down. And so I expect to see the best of him with the Jets. The Jets are set up properly. The coach said we're gonna let him play quarterback. That tells you a lot. That tells you he watched from afar, like, man, they putting this dude in a bad situation. And so I'm excited to see what he does there. And he was 4-2 when they the other wordsmithing that people use, like he got benched. Why didn't he get benched?
Right.
Russell Wilson just took his job back because he was a starter coming in.
Right.
And you don't lose your job due to injury. But because they didn't go back to Justin Fields, and now we're hearing that the players all kind of wanted Justin Fields to be back in there, says a lot, man. So I think he'll be great with the Jets.
Man, you get me excited for NFL season right now, man. We got a couple more months. I'm getting pumped for it. Emory, I want to be mindful of your time, man. So last question. You're obviously a football guy through and through. What is something you can leave us with, maybe from the game of football, maybe a life lesson or a takeaway from being around football all your life, being so involved, something that you just love about the game and that you've taken with it in your life, maybe even off the football field?
Be in the now. That is what I've learned the most from the game of football, because if you're in the now, you have a greater appreciation for everything. Whether it's a tough practice, whether it's a tough workout, whether it's a touchdown, whether it's a very cold game or whatever, like you just be in the moment. So a lot of times you kind of see me living the old school way when you see me out and about, and I'm just embracing everything. I don't have my phone out. I may take a picture, but the phone goes back and I'm just experiencing being, right? And so that has kind of helped me throughout the course of my life in business or whatever. So like, just be in the now, right? But also see the big picture. And I think I'm able to kind of balance both things. But being in the now, obviously all the things that you learn in football, fight through adversity, all the stuff like that. But just being present is first and foremost, because it can be taken away. And at least you could have your lasting memory of, that moment being like, well, I had a great time, And so I think a lot of us as football players don't embrace the now. We kind of always looking ahead and kind of thinking forward. And sometimes that works out for you. Other times the game gets taken away. You just like, geez, that's why I always put out that tweet at the beginning of rookie mini camps, or at the end of rookie mini camps, where it's saying what I'm saying, like, even if you put on this helmet for the last time, you are an NFL player in my book. You've accomplished a childhood dream. How cool is that? And because you have a situation like Jordan Travis, right? At least he can say, I got drafted and I got to the NFL. Even though it didn't work out how he thought it would work out, but man, imagine one of these kids that's in these 90 roster rookie mini camps, 15th receiver out of 17, you're barely getting reps, but at least you have that memory of like, I was in an NFL facility, I got to put on an NFL helmet, I made it. And I think that's a part of being in the now.
I love it, man. That's beautiful. Emory Hunt, thank you so much, man, for joining us on the show, man. I could talk to you all day. We got to do it again sometime.
Absolutely, man. Good luck this week. I don't know if you got a game this week, but good luck.
Yeah, thanks, man. I don't have one this weekend, but I got them coming up this summer. So you got a big weekend. Good luck with that, man. I'll be tuning in.
Appreciate you, man. I'll try not to mess up a lot. Like, saying I'll get rolling by the second quarter, though.
Yeah, there you go. Some of the European names sometimes a little bit tough for me. Well,
exactly. So I got to start studying now.
All right, man. Thanks a lot.
Appreciate you, Nick.
Thank you.